how we approach gold in India is gold as investment and gold as jewelry. Now, and both conversations are very different. If you look at our demand, this year, so 2024, 70% of demand comes from gold jewelry. 30% of the demand comes from the gold investment. Storytelling continues in all our campaigns. Everything that we do, we have to tell a story because that's where the relevance, the resonance will come.
Right.
So even for the rational side of it, when we talk about gold as investment class, there is a storytelling because you're talking about the future. You're talking about, what it will do to your portfolio and therefore how it will kind of safeguard and secure your future. And that's also storytelling. 10 to 12% is what gold allocation should be, and that's what we advocate. But it's about, ensuring that consumer understand the role of gold, and that's what we tell through our campaigns. We don't compete with any other asset class. Our focus is on making the consumers, the investors understand the role it plays. Whenever there's been a market crash, whenever there is a negative atmosphere, gold is considered safe haven, and that's where the gold prices have gone up. Through our surveys, 64% of the younger audience, which is millennials and Gen Z, they said that they don't emotionally connect with the gold. So it's not the same story which we have for, what we had for the older generation.
Taste is changing.
The taste is changing. They have more options today. They are looking at travel. They're looking at experiences, which talks about no matter what, people would pursue their passion. They will not give up, and that's how they shine.
Hello and welcome to the HT Brand Leadership Series, a series of one-on-one interactions with top brand and marketing leaders who share their industry insights and strategies that have helped shape their stories. This series, hosted by Hindustan Times, offers a behind-the-scenes look at how leaders adjust their strategies for changing consumer behavior while leveraging media channels that improve customer relationships. Today, we are joined by Arti Saxena, Director and Head of Marketing India at the World Gold Council. With over a decade at the council, Arti has been instrumental in reshaping the narrative around gold in India, especially among younger demographics. Her previous roles at Kingfisher Airlines and Yes Bank have equipped her with a diverse perspective on consumer behavior and brand positioning. Welcome, Arti. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Abhishek. The pleasure is all mine.
Tell me something. Gold is one of the most sought after commodities in India. It's almost in every household. How do you start your conversation with your consumers or with the various forums that you're at? How do you talk about gold and how do you position gold today?
Yes, in fact, our survey indicates that 73% of Indian household has gold. So yes, it has a huge penetration across the country. When it talks about the conversation around gold, how we approach gold in India is gold as investment and gold as jewelry. Now, and both conversations are very different. If you look at our demand, this year, so 2024, 70% of demand comes from gold jewelry. 30% of the demand comes from the gold investment. So both has its own share and a different set of conversation, different set of audience, and we drive narrative for both separately. When it comes to jewelry, we do in-depth consumer survey. We work on deep insights from consumers, and that has led us to understand that there is a lack of relevance with the younger audience, and that's where we focus on driving relevance for the younger generation. On the other side, when you look at gold as investment, there is lack of understanding in gold's role in the portfolio. So while it's very clearly understood that over a period of time, it's a long-term return asset class, but the core role of gold, which is as a diversifier in the portfolio, that's something which there is clearly a lack of understanding, and that's what we focus on. So yeah, in terms of positioning gold, different aspect of gold, different approaches based on the consumer insights that we have, and that's how we drive the narrative for the category.
I'm going to probe more because gold is also in our Indian cultural fabric. So a lot of the purchases are also emotionally backed. But then there's also the practicality and functionality aspect when it comes to financial independence, because it comes under the ambit of financial literacy, because You can't lay all your eggs in one basket. You have to diversify your wealth creation. So how are you balancing this narrative when it comes to an emotional purchase versus an investment overall? So how are you managing this, considering your audience or your consumer size is also growing? They're much younger now. How are you balancing this difficult weight?
Like I said, that we approach them separately, and when we look at the jewelry side of it, the adornment side, we're talking to the emotional. We're looking at how do we drive relevance, and therefore the focus is how do you tell, and especially like you said that our focus is younger audience. The focus is how do you emotionally tell emotionally evocative story. That's
Right.
very different. But when we look at the investment side of it, it's more rational. Now, I want to highlight one thing, that storytelling continues in all our campaigns. Everything that we do, we have to tell a story, because that's where the relevance, the resonance will come.
Right.
So even for the rational side of it, when we talk about gold as investment class, there is a storytelling, because you're talking about the future. You're
Right.
talking about, what it will do to your portfolio, and therefore how it will kind of safeguard and secure your future. And that's also storytelling. But yes, it appeals to the rational thinking, because it's about the investment. So clear different approaches,
Yes.
different set of audiences, different mindset, but storytelling at the heart of it.
Absolutely, that won't change. Clearly, there has been a visible shift in how the millennials and the Gen Zs look at traditional assets. Are there any learnings or any insights that you've gathered in from your last campaigns, how they are reacting to gold as an asset class?
Yes. So let me first talk about, as an asset class, let me first talk about the insights that we unearthed before we launched our campaign. We spoke to around 3,000 investors in India, and 63% of investors said there's a lack of understanding. When we took a deep dive, like I mentioned, that it's essentially about not understanding what is the role it plays in the portfolio. And that's where we kind of started working on a campaign which we launched in 2022, Power Your Portfolio with Gold, where we're talking about gold as a category, as an investment asset class, and we're focusing on stories which is essentially about how do you secure your future, how you can realize your dream by making sure that gold is a part of your portfolio. We are very clear in terms of 10 to 12%, because statistically it's proven. If you look at last many decades of data, 10 to 12% is what gold allocation should be, and that's what we advocate. But it's about ensuring that consumer understand the role of gold, and that's what we tell through our campaigns. We do a lot of content marketing also to make sure that there are different voices which talks about gold. In terms of consumers' understanding of it and the impact of the campaign, we've done a lot of pre and post campaign analysis, and we've seen that through our campaigns we've been able to make them understand the role of gold. It's a long play. It's not going to something which is, whenever it's about category level, whenever it's about perception or fundamental understanding of an asset class, it takes time, and we understand that. But we have seen the needle move. In fact, we have recently finished our second round of consumer survey. We do it every 3 to 5 years. Right. We will see the impact, how much it's made an impact, and how the needle is moved. But when we look at the market trends, the consumer surveys that we've done, there's been a clear impact. So that's something which has really worked for us.
Pretty interesting, because you spoke about category, and you're sitting in a very interesting position, because like Amphi, who wanted to drive mutual fund sahi hai, you're obviously trying to drive your own gold sahi hai kind of a campaign. So how do you have a differentiated voice? Because at the end of the day, even a Tanishq or Malabar or other financial institutions are also promoting gold. So how are you taking a stand in educating your consumers that gold is the way forward? How is that positioning happening?
See, for us, we really do not compete with any other asset class, equity or mutual fund. They have their own role in portfolio.
Correct.
That's what, like I said, that it's 10 to 12%. The remaining 88 to 90% of the portfolio is meant for, depending on your risk appetite, depending on your age. There is a clear direction on how much equity you should look at, how much mutual fund you should look at, real estate, savings account, So there are multiple asset class, and we really, in at least gold as an investment asset, we don't compete with any other asset class. Our focus is on making the consumers, the investors understand the role it plays. I'll give an example. Whenever market crashes, look at what happened in COVID.
Yes.
The tariff war, the wars that has happened international. Gold price are international. I mean, the movement is driven by international factor, external factors. Whenever there's been a market crash, whenever there is a negative atmosphere, gold is considered safe haven, and that's where the gold prices have gone up. And that's what we focus on. Talking about our strength, not competing with any other class, whether it is MP or any other asset class. For us, we just focus on our strength. We just focus on the role that gold plays, and it is a very, very important role because when other asset classes are going down, gold actually balances the portfolio.
Correct.
So it, in that sense, is really secure the future, and that's what we focus on.
Clearly, because gold has historically beaten inflation, so the narrative actually, or history works in your favor, the numbers speak in your favor. So if I have to further delve on category marketing, so how, in the context of gold, what are the challenges in building value when you're offering something which is intangible or trust driven? So what are those challenges that you face sometimes?
Yes, a great question, because that's one of the biggest challenges that we face. We don't have a product, and therefore we cannot compete with any other product class. For us, it's a category. But for us, like I mentioned, we only focus on the strength that we have. Let me talk about gold as jewelry, because you also spoke about Tanishq and Malabar. Now, that's the gold jewelry space where we look at the adornment side. Through our surveys, 64% of the younger audience, which is millennials and Gen Z, they said that they don't emotionally connect with the gold. So it's not the same story which we have for, what we had for the older generation.
Taste is changing.
The taste is changing. They have more options today. They are looking at travel. They're looking at experiences.
Yes.
And therefore, yes, in terms of relevance, gold has, there is a lack of relevance, and that's something which we focus on. Now, in this case, for us, the focus has been how do we tell a story which connects with the younger audience. You spoke about gold's legacy. If you look at gold legacy in India, there is a very strong emotional bond. Look at our celebrations. Look at our heritage, our culture, festivals, mythology, stories. Our wedding, 55% of our demand comes from wedding. All our festivals, gold is the prime purchase occasion. And that's where the strength lies. But at the same time, when we look at the younger generation, there is a bit of a disconnect. So for us, the biggest challenge there was how do we transform a classic story into something which is modern, something which is youthful. And therefore, because it's not something which is a tangible product, we looked at something which is very deep-rooted. Think about gold, look at all the idioms that we have. We keep talking about, something as good as gold, or the person is heart of gold. It's always used in a superlative sense. For us, we focus on the core value, what gold stands for. And that's why our second campaign, which is You Are Gold, which is essentially an intervention in the jewelry side of it, targeting the younger generation. The storytelling was all about who the person is, who you are, what you stand for, what your values are. Equate that, the purity of that, to gold. Gold is also very superlative. It's also superlative because look at gold medal. It's a marker of achievement. Nothing beats the gold medal. So from that perspective, gold has a strong legacy. It's just about how you kind of reimagine the story and tell it to the younger generation. So for us, from that perspective, category marketing is about looking at very fundamental values that gold represent. Yes, it does pose a lot of challenge because there is nothing which is tangible.
True.
But the legacy of gold is so strong. There are so many strong association, even trust and being auspicious, expression of love. I think there are so many buckets that gold represents. Right. It's been a great journey and something which we've been able to leverage for us.
Yeah, I'm sure, because there's so many positive connotations around gold. Whether it's about an athlete winning a gold medal, or somebody giving a wedding ring, proposing his to-be wife. I want to touch upon more on creativity and campaigns because you mentioned storytelling. So I want to delve a little more on your recent campaign, which is You Are Gold.
Yeah.
Position gold as a symbol of self-worth. What are the creative thought? What were the insights that led you to, uncover this campaign?
So like I mentioned, Abhishek, we looked at gold strength, and that's something which has been our constant endeavor, that always look at what gold stands for. And when we look at our culture, our heritage, our tradition, gold is present. And that's where the strength lies, and that's where we started leading our conversation. Through consumer survey, we understand, there is a lack of emotional connectedness, and
Right.
therefore what we did was we looked at how do you reimagine, how do you reinterpret the entire story, which resonates with the younger generation. It's about the fundamental values, what gold represents, and making sure that it's something which you tell the stories which resonates and equate with something as pure and something as good as gold. And that's something which has been a driving force from the creative standpoint also.
Any interesting reactions you may have got from your audiences, or anybody was able to comment something interesting? Any memories on that?
Yeah, lots of it, because we focus a lot on the content side of
Yeah.
it. We focus a lot on the influencer marketing.
Right.
In influencer marketing, what we focused on is working very closely with macro and micro influencers.
Right.
And like the campaign thought, we focused on real people, real stories,
Correct.
their real life stories, which talks about no matter what, people would pursue their passion. They will not give up, and that's how they shine. And that's where we saw a lot of conversation, and we got very beautiful insights. So one of the stories I remember, one of the influencer campaign which broke the ceiling
Yes.
for the influencer and for us in terms of engagement. It was with the pilot.
Okay.
And she spoke about her story. She comes from a very small town, and she spoke about how it was so difficult. She wanted to be a pilot, and it was so difficult for her to convince her parents, but parents supported, and she didn't give up. It is difficult. She's one of the most successful pilots that we have in our country today. And in the last call out, she said that tag people and tell them that you are gold.
Wow.
And what happened? We saw the entire chain. This also went viral within the influencer space. We saw so many people actually started tagging their loved ones, friends, maybe brother, sister, calling them you are gold, and say that you are going to be a pilot, you are going to achieve your dreams, no matter what. See, don't give up, you will be her one day. And it just feels so good that the expression you are gold, it's touching people's heart. It's so good to see that it's resonating with them and they're using it for their purpose. And then that's why there was a huge amplifier, because people were tagging each other and people kept talking about it. So a lot of such stories, but this is the one which comes to my mind.
This is very interesting you talked about, because I think you've also managed to do storytelling, and you've told a true story of somebody's struggle, and they were managed to overcome the hurdles.
Yeah.
and realize this whole tagline of you are gold. So yeah, that was clearly insight led. You touched upon influencers. How do you look at influencers as in your scheme of communication? Are they like a constant in all your campaigns, or you pick and choose? You pick and you decide on whether an influencer will work now, or it's something like that. You use it as hygiene now.
Honesty has always been a part of our campaigns. Right. We always look at it very holistically. So it's not just the campaign, the media that we look at. We also look at content. We look at influencers. And it has really worked for us, especially in the jewelry category.
Right.
I gave you an example of the pilot. There were so many such examples. We worked very closely with the first motor race champion in India, the first female motor race champion in India. I was shocked to see, she's there and she's so popular, but, she's not covered by the mainline media. Right. And her story, again, very, very high engagement delivered. Paralympic players. So yes, we continued to work very closely with the macro and micro influencers. We kept talking about their own story, and we kept it
Yes.
authentic, real, because that's where it strikes a chord with their followers and with the larger influencer. What we also did is, beyond this, while these two worked very well for us, we also, in subsequent years, we also started working with nano influencer.
Okay.
And nano influencers have relatively lesser followers, 10,000 and less. And therefore, what we did is we worked along with a nano influencer. It was a 3-party initiative where we also look at a very famous fashion lifestyle publishing house, and said, let's work together. It's a win-win for all, because the nano influencers, they tell the stories, and the stories, which is their life story, which they talk about how they made things happen, how they just stayed true to to themselves, and they achieved what they wanted to. It's about, very something which they stood for, the values. So great campaign, great storytelling, great content for the publishing house, because they're also looking at, how do we get real stories and talk about it. And from the goal perspective, it really worked, because that's what goal stands for. What also happened is that while we're reaching to the smaller universe of nano influencers, which is smaller universe but highly engaged. At the same time, we also were tapping the followers of the magazine of the publishing house, because it was a 3-party. So what happened is, for us, it was almost like a double bonanza.
Yes.
We had a very strong engagement, because both the ecosystem were working for us. So in that sense, we delivered great result, not just with the macro and micro influencer, but even with nano associated with another publishing house.
Because they enjoy a strong niche.
Yes, absolutely. So for us, it's been a part of our strategy from day one, and it continues to be so.
Clearly, content marketing has been well thought out, and it's been you've been using influencers in this. But then that's from a storytelling and emotion perspective. I think what our audiences would like to know is how using content marketing to also build trust and education, because at the end of the day, gold is also an asset class, and it's all about financial literacy and how you enable your audiences to also diversify their investments. So how do you see that coming about?
Sure. Abhishek, when we work with the influencer, we build trust, we build credibility, because their followers are following the influencer because they believe in her. It's not the celebrity which everyone is charmed with, but influencer is a lot more real, a lot more authentic. And through those values, we drove our narrative of gold, because gold is exactly what it is: real, it's authentic, it has its own story, it has its own legacy. And that's what we did with the influencer campaign. Talking about the investment side of it, we had a little different take on the influencer, on the content side of it. What we did was, we worked on the community building side of it. So we worked with one of the biggest platforms, social media platform, which has a dedicated community on finance and investment. We worked very closely with them. We participated on this community, talk about gold in the relevant occasion. They were KOLs, the key opinion leaders, who spoke about it. And we had a very clear mandate that this mandate actually is not just from us, and even from the social media side, platform side, that this has to be organic integration. Right. It is not a paid marketing. It's not something where you just slap an ad on your face. This is a organic integration in the conversation that's happening. And with that mandate, we ensured that the KOLs, wherever there was a request or wherever there's a conversation around what should I do, should I consider gold, what gold product I should consider, there were very unbiased, neutral opinion on what are the possibilities, so that they can be informed and take decision on their own. And that's how we looked at, content from the community building perspective, and ensuring that there is an education around gold, there is a conversation around gold. At the same time, it is just about informing them what gold can do. And then, of course, it's their choice, because there is no buying right now. It's community building. So it's about, driving the conversation, the right conversation in a very neutral and unbiased way, and let the consumers, let the investor make an informed choice.
Understood. I wanted to touch upon the other aspect, which is second screen, third screens. We have clearly, audiences are moved from television to digital and now to so many screens. And with the rise of digital first audiences now, how does your media mix look like today? How are you strategizing your media planning?
See, from our perspective, yes, I have seen a lot of conversation about moving away from one media to other. And that's happening. So even in our case, we have a very, very strong focus on digital, social marketing, social media. But television is also a part of our media.
It can be a mixed media approach.
Absolutely. So ours is a multi-integrated 360 degrees media approach. It also includes print. And definitely the line share is with digital, social content, influencer marketing. But we have managed to ensure that we strike a right balance. When it comes to television, we look at programming, which is, we look at the viewership data and choose programming reality shows where you see that there's higher viewership of the younger audience. The television has the reach. It also gives you a regional penetration when it comes to South, when it comes to Eastern pockets. And we want to make sure that, our messages reach far and wide. So television is definitely a part of our mix. But yeah, when it comes to driving engagement, then we are focusing a lot on the content and the influencer marketing side of it. Of course, digital, social, driving conversation, again, delivering reach, driving awareness. I mean, different media serves different purpose. But for us, we don't look at one media versus other media option. For us, we see how we can use different media channel for our purpose to reach our audience and deliver the results deliver the objective that we have set up for ourselves.
Clearly, digital is your preference. That
Yes.
Obviously digital and social media clubbed with influencers will work hand to hand. When it comes to innovation of formats like immersive storytelling, AR, VR, any interactive campaigns, how are you exploring this to ensure that Gold as a narrative is immersed in all of these innovations? Are you looking at that as a media vehicle now?
When we look at immersive or experiential marketing, and this actually goes back to your question on intangible aspect. For us, that poses a bit of a problem because we don't have a product, and therefore the experiential marketing is a bit of a challenge for us. But let me tell you some of the work that we have done in the interactive space with the use of artificial intelligence.
Right.
One of the campaign that we did was a real-time DCO, which is dynamic creative optimization. As the market moves, whether it goes up or it goes down, we served a creative which kind of, it in real time, real messaging, making sure that it talks to the consumer depending on what's happening real time. We had multiple rendition of creative and looking at artificial intelligence, depending on if the market is going down and there's a bit of a negative sentiment, we will have creatives which talks about that don't worry if the market is going down,
buying
gold because it's, yes. So in that sense, we used artificial intelligence. It was interactive in a way that it was seeing what's happening with the real world on markets. It was mapping it real time and serving relevant creative messages. That is a campaign which is one of the most successful campaign we run because the kind of engagement and the CTR that it delivered, we have not seen that kind of delivery in any other digital campaign because it's right time, it's right message, and that always works. So that's something which we experimented with the new technology.
Interesting. Can you call that out as one of your most interesting or bold marketing campaigns, which probably may have surprised you because obviously there's an ROI that you're looking at. You're trying to move the needle in some shape and form. Was that one of them, or there's any other one that you would like to point out to our audiences that really surprised you?
There are many. As a marketing professional, we continue to take risk. We continue to push boundary, and therefore there are a lot of failures, a lot of successes. And both ways it kind of surprises because sometimes you believe in it and it doesn't work. But that's what it is. That's what makes marketing so exciting. I spoke about the influencer campaign, which really worked so well for us, and we saw people really talking about and hashtagging You Are Gold, and it gives us immense pleasure that it's resonating with the consumer. In case of Power Portfolio with Gold campaign, I spoke about the real-time DCO that we did, the creative, dynamic creative optimization. There was one more initiative that we did. It really worked for us. Is in today's world, there are so many apps with digital first audience. So there are so many financial and investment apps which people have. And what we did is we worked with one of the technology player. And whenever the consumer, the investor will log into their investment app, they will be served gold related ad.
Right.
That is an example that at the right time, the thing is, it's about the mindset. You're doing something, you're watching some news, sometimes, the goal doesn't sit well. And it's not just about goal, it's about any category. And that's something which, as a marketing professional, we're always concerned with, that, the media screening, the negative aspect of it, ensure that it's highly relevant. In this case, the relevancy, because in your mind, you're just thinking about your investment. That's why you're logging into your app. And at that moment, when there's a reminder, we saw very, very high engagement.
Right.
So that was another very successful initiative that we did, based on the insights, based on something which is happening real time. And that's all possible because of the technology today.
Correct.
And that's worked pretty well for us.
Interesting. You use context of using the app and again, there's an amount of emotion when you're looking at your stocks, because you're always hoping that it's in green, and then suddenly you see gold as a call to action. Clearly there is a reaction. Interesting insight there. I want to talk about your past learnings across sectors. You've been part of aviation, you've been part of banking, and now gold. What were the learnings that probably helped you shape your marketing strategy today? What any interesting past experiences that have come handy?
I'll tell you, firstly, I have had the opportunity to work with FMCG in the early part of my career, moving on to the retail side, and then, like you mentioned, airline, BFSI, and now with gold. And it's been such an exciting journey and a lot of challenges. I'll tell you, when I changed my industries, it's always very challenging, because then there are a lot of new learnings.
Correct.
But as a marketeer, one thing, our principle, our guiding force is consumer at the heart of everything we do. So more than changing industry, I mean, that's a lot of excitement, because there's so many new things that you'll understand, so many new challenges you to understand. Same consumer, but different perspective, because the industry, everyone responds to different industry very differently. It's actually the consumer, the way it's evolved, that has been a great learning. So it's not about starting my career with FMCG and retail. It has helped a lot, because these are very, very fundamental sectors. So it's been a great experience. And I'm sure that, when we have the discussion, we keep talking about, for us, when we have the conversation with our partners, we never talk about within our industry what's happening. It's like, let's look at what's happening in every industry.
Correct.
And if there are successes, how we can replicate. And therefore, it's always a cross-industry learning for us. So I wouldn't be able to pinpoint any specific insight or learning which I would have learned from my past experiences. It's mostly from the consumer side. When you keep interacting with consumer in different ways, you keep learning. And especially in last 15 to 20 years, the way the consumers have evolved, the entire digital and social disruption that it caused, the way it's impacted change in consumer behavior. And at this point of time, in last 2-3 years, we are sitting at the cusp of, again, disruption, which is, with artificial intelligence, the analytics that's available to us. That's where there is a continuous learning. And I don't think that's going to ever stop. I mean, that's the best part of being in marketing, that whatever phase, life stage you are, there's always a challenge. Yes, it could be industry-specific challenge, but the point is that you're targeting the consumers, and that's where the entire conversation happened. And the way the consumers have evolved, the behavior has changed. I think that's where there's been a lot of learning, and that keeps there's no dearth. It never stops.
Understood. As in, it's pretty clear you've been very strong on the foundation, that keeping the consumer in the center, and how you've analyzed consumers across different sectors is something that I think you are using that in order for the current communication. So clearly gold, which is something so timeless, which basically has such rich history. How much scope do you, it's an open canvas. there's clearly lots of scope for experimentation and creativity. So how much free hand do you give? Because at the end of the day, gold is, there are enough facts to support it, but then how do you twist the narrative sometimes? You get a little self-indulgent on some of your campaigns?
If you're talking about, so it's a complete free hand, because when we work with our partner within our team, cross-function team, we were very clear on our challenges, because that's something which comes from our own consumer survey. We work extensively on the research side of it. And our research is both sides. It's understanding the industry. So we have a deep understanding of gold industry on one side. Also, we work extensively on the consumer survey also. So we have a very good understanding of the barriers, the triggers, consumer preferences. So it's a very clear articulation of what the real challenges are. And therefore, for us, if we, and looking at the audience today, the younger generation, it's a huge challenge for every category. And therefore, the only way to work and deliver something which is impactful, meaningful, is to give free hand. I mean, it's pre-thinking, everyone on the table, not just our own team. We are a fairly lean organization. We work very closely with different partners, but every partner on the same table, thinking about, what can be done, how can we change the narrative, this discussion happens. So I think you need to be able to share a lot of ideas, have open communication, and then probably see what works for you and keep experimenting. So yes, it's free hand to all.
Absolutely.
That's how it works.
You mentioned about how the consumer also is changing over the years, and they have evolved in the last 10-15 years, and looking at AI and so many other things that they are dabbling with. What is one consumer trend or marketing shift that you have witnessed or rather excites you in 2025 and probably keeps you on your toes? Any one consumer insight or trend that you see?
The trend, I've already spoken about the technology. So the disruption that's happening, I think it will disrupt the way the consumer shop or consume product and services. There will also be disruption on the businesses and therefore marketing. So I think there will be a newer world, a very different world, where using technology will be very fundamental to how we operate. That's definitely one of the biggest challenges that we're facing today. But there's another thing which I would want to talk about is sustainability and ethical marketing.
Yes.
I think that's something, the trend's picking up very fast. There are some side of the globe is where the trend has already picked up.
Yes.
But today the audience, it's a global audience. They know what's happening in US, UK. They are very exposed in that sense. And therefore, this is something which will pick up really big time. It's already picked up in India, but I think that's a future trend which we're very conscious of. And that's why it's very important to drive the conversation and understand and talk about the sustainability part of it, the ethical side of it, marketing as well as the product category that we have operated in. So that is something which is a very interesting development that's happening. It's unfolding as we speak. And I think in next 5 to 10 years, brands or categories with purpose, with meaning is what's going to resonate with the younger consumer. And therefore, I think it's a huge challenge for us as a marketeer and specifically for gold category. How do we navigate this world and make sure that we stay relevant to the evolving consumer?
That's very, very true, because when you look at the FMCG space, they've started to do that a lot. Or you look at Adidas and Nike, they talk about sourcing sustainably. So I think that shift is coming, and also a lot of weightage is also on consumers. They have shown preference for brands who have been responsive when it comes to sustainability. So yeah, that's a very interesting angle, and I think where you are sitting, you'll be able to drive the narrative, because at the end of the day, you have the whole entire perspective of the gold industry. What I wanted to ask you is that if somebody today wants to understand how do you embed sustainability in the conversation, because the only thing they will go back to is how do you mint gold, in sense, are you mining, how do you mine gold, what are the safe practices? Is that a narrative that you would want to look at, or you would talk about globally, what are the best practices? I'm sure that there are enough gold best practices that are happening globally, and there is something that we can talk about and start spoken enough. Like banking has something called sustainability financing sustainably.
Yes.
So where they finance projects which have value to society. So is that a narrative that it's a new twist that you would like to look at?
It's a great question. ESG credential in investment landscape, in the investment product, that's picking up big time, and investors are looking at the assets which are ESG compliant. Globally, we have launched RGIPs, Retail Gold Investment Principles, RGMPs, which is about mining principles, which ensures that globally, gold industry adheres to the best practices that we have. In fact, as we speak, we are working on a campaign, an initiative which kind of promotes the best practices. That's more conceptual level because it's about the best practices, ethical sourcing, fair practices, business practices, commercial prudence. It's across, there are 7 principles that we have defined, which is very fundamental to every business, including gold. And we have developed code of conduct. So it's not just about principles, but we have very clear guidelines and code of conduct on how you can call yourself a fair, there is a fairness and integrity in your business, or there's a commercial prudence because if something goes wrong, how you have safeguarded your business. All those practices are very specific to the gold industry across the value chain. So it's not just about the retailers, it's also about the refiners. It's also about the logistic players. So through the entire value chain, we have launched the principles and the code of conduct. And at this point of time, we are working on how do we, while the consumer trend is already picked up, which our consumer survey clearly indicates, we are also saying that, okay, how these practices that we have launched for the B2B segment, for our own gold industry, how do we ensure that consumer also starts showing preferences? So we have something which is in pipeline where we will drive preference towards compliant members, compliant participants of the industry. So it's very much an anvil because we understand that in next 5 to 10 years, that's what's going to make the difference. And therefore, we want the industry to be ready so that they can clearly talk about all these principles and how they're adhering to it. And therefore, there's clear preference towards the ESG compliance.
Understood. My last question, if I don't pick on something else, gold as a concept is this tied to legacy? Marketing is also tied to legacy. If I am allowed to ask, how do you hope to leave behind your own legacy when it comes to marketing in this sector?
That's a very difficult question, Abhishek. It's gold has such a strong legacy. I think it has a legacy like no other. So that's a tall ask. But if I were to look at my legacy, I would definitely want to see, when I look behind, I would want to see the kind of impact that I've created, the kind of a long-lasting value that I've created, and most importantly, with people. The mentorship, how I'm able to nurture future leaders, that would be very, very important for me because as a leader, it's very important to create the right kind of work environment, positive culture, culture of inclusivity, open communication. And when I look behind, I should be able to, look at the kind of culture that I advocated, the kind of leaders I could nurture and mentor. I think that's something which would make me feel proud, and probably that would be my legacy. At the same time, on the more marketing specific thing, I think sometimes because the world is moving so fast, and yes, we need to be agile and highly adaptable, it's very important that we do not lose the sight of forest when we're looking for trees. And therefore, developing systems and processes to make sure that your long-term strategic thinking is in place while you keep looking at quarters and campaigns and what's happening, what is the problem today. Even long run, what you're trying to deliver is something which is very important. It should be very purpose-driven and meaningful, and that's something, there needs to be a system and processes in place to make sure that you do not digress from the path. And that's something I would want to create and leave behind.
Truly golden words. Thank you so much, Arti, for joining us and sharing these insights. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much. The pleasure was all mine.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.